I know Representative Gary Click, one of really the best in the country, of course in the state of Ohio, but across the nation. And yeah, absolutely.
And we're going to have Representative Click and Klopfenstein for sponsored testimony.
But there's no more local control than Bob and Betty Buckeye.
Well, that explains why he keeps saying, well, that's not the way Representative Click does it.
I'm not supposed to get emotional, but I am.
Then we sat down with Click to discuss his bill and the controversy surrounding it.
And the chair would like to invite Representative Click to present testimony.
The question is, shall the bill pass? The chair recognizes Representative Click.
Welcome back to What's Clicking with State Representative Gary Click. I'm Janae Myers, his legislative aide. Today, we will be having an interview with Representative Adam Byrd to discuss HB 455. Representative, do you want to give us a little teaser of what we'll be hearing today?
Yeah, I'm so looking forward to sharing this with you. Adam and I talked about HB 455. And by the way, I don't know if you saw this, Janae, or not. The Sloopy Awards came out.
Yes.
And the Sloopies, as they call them. And that's just kind of a fun thing they do over at cleveland.com. It's like, who has the best of this and the worst of this and blah, blah, blah. And I came in second for the biggest win bag. So, hey, I think the last time I think I beat Bernie Marino. He came in second. I came in first. So, but this time I got edged out by Josh Williams, believe it or not. And so I called Josh to congratulate him on that. But I vow to earn that back next time. I just have to do a little bit more talking and so forth. But what I will also say is What's Clickin' was on the list for social media. And the category was the worst use of social media. Now, I will tell you this, that we did not come in first in that. So we are officially not the worst use of social media here at What's Clickin'. But I will also say that many of these are actually just partisan. It's like, whatever, it's like the people that they rate worst are the people that are the most conservative. So it really doesn't mean that they're the worst. It just means that they're the most conservative and unashamed of it. Although there is a blogger, an unnamed blogger that is very foul. We'll just say he's very foul, who actually came in as rated worse than What's Clicking. So I'm very proud of that. That he was worse than me in social media. And so anyhow, we are officially not the worst use of social media. But now
I think that is a great award to receive.
And so anyhow, I'm just glad that they noticed us, and we were only like 14, 15 episodes in at that time. And so we're already making some news around the state with the podcast. And again, our goal here is not to be to go viral. We're not going to threaten any of the big names. That's not our goal. Our goal is to provide information for those primarily within the district, but also in Ohio. If you want to know what's clicking in the state house or what's clicking in the 88th district, this is a place you can get that inside look. We're not always breaking news. Matter of fact, I don't think we've ever been breaking news. It's more of an insider's look into what's happening. And so you can kind of get that inside vibe, that inside feel. This is not our main job. This is just a way that we inform our constituents of what's happening, or as we like to say, what's clicking.
Absolutely.
And so
what is the insider view on HB 455?
That's exactly right. So 455 is a bill that was led by my good friend, Representative Adam Byrd, as well as Representative Gail Manning. Deals with education, and it cuts some of the red tape in education. And, my policy has always been I want every student to succeed everywhere. I want to recognize our teachers. They have a very hard and a difficult job. Sometimes I get confused as being anti public schools just because I believe in school choice, and that's never been the case. I want to help every student succeed everywhere. I want every teacher to be successful. I want every teacher to have all the tools available to them. And sometimes people claim that, I think falsely so, that the private schools are not regulated enough, and that's not fair. I said, well, how about if we just deregulate you? And they're like, well, yeah, that's good. That's good. And so that's part of what this bill does that I support. And we talk about some of those deregulations, and we're not saying deregulate to a point where they're not accountable, but some of the regulations are just bureaucracy and red tape, and they don't further the education of the student. And those are the things that are cut because we want our educators everywhere to be able to do the best possible job that they can do in providing an education for our students. And so Representative Adam Byrd and I talk about that.
All right, let's jump in.
Well, we are back today again on What's Clickin', and today I have a special guest, my good friend, State Representative Adam Byrd. How are you today, Adam?
Great to be with you. I'm on the sunny south coast of Ohio today, but it's kind of cold and blustery out there.
It's not sunny while your Christmas tree's in the living room, right?
It's not sunny today.
Yeah. All right. Well, Adam is on the sunny south coast. I'm up here on the sunny north coast of Ohio. It's sunny, but there's also this white stuff on the ground, and that's all good. It can stay here till the day after Christmas. Then I'm ready for it to get out of here.
Yeah.
But thank you for joining me on What's Clicking today, Adam. And State Representative Adam Byrd is from Claremont County. He and I came in together. We are in the same class, and we have done a lot of things together. And Adam, your forte when we're talking about the legislature is public school education, because you spent a career in public school education. So would you just take a minute before we start talking about some bills and some policy issues out there? Will you just take a minute and tell us about your background? Tell us about yourself. I know you and Tammy have been married for 35 years now, I think, and 4 kids. So just give us a couple minutes of the bio. Who is State Representative Adam Byrd?
Well, I am blessed to have a wonderful wife. She and I have been married for 38 years, and we do have 4 kids. We have 2 son-in-laws, and we have 5 grandkids. So we're really blessed. And so, I did spend 11 years in the classroom as a high school biology teacher, coach, and then the next 22 years as a principal, assistant principal, superintendent. And so I jokingly tell people that after 22 years of being a principal or superintendent, I needed a job that was less political. So I decided to run for state representative. And it's actually, being a public school administrator is not an easy job. It definitely has its difficulties. And so you're trying to make decisions that, that balance between what's in the best interest of the child, what can we do to help grow children and be productive in that area, while at the same time you're trying to protect the taxpayer. And so, the other challenge in that role is that you're working with multiple interested parties. And so you're working with the Boosters Club, you're working with the school board, you're working with the teachers union, you're working with the Chamber of Commerce, you're working with the bus drivers union. And all of these different groups don't always see eye to eye, and trying to balance, like I said, the needs of the taxpayer versus the need of the child is what makes that especially challenging times.
Yeah, that is challenging, and we thank you for your work, because I think public school education is so important. And every once in a while, people will try to ding me and act like I don't support public schools just because I believe in school choice. But as you've heard me say often, I want every student to succeed everywhere, and I want them to succeed in the public schools. I want them to succeed in private schools. I want them to succeed in homeschool. I just want every student to succeed everywhere. And you have been one of the great champions, I think, of the public schools, but you've also supported school choice and things like that as well when it's appropriate. And you have served as the chairman of the House Education Committee, and now you are serving as the assistant majority floor leader. So you are in leadership. We say that's up on 14. That's how we talk about that, because that's the floor where most of leadership is. But we have enough people on leadership this year that some of them have to don't even get to be on 14, but they're still part of leadership. But thank you for your service that way. Thank you for your leadership. I know you are extremely well respected among our caucus. And just before Thanksgiving break, we passed a bill, and it passed unanimously. It was yourself and Representative Gail Manning. It was House Bill 455. And I was just listening to your floor speech before we went on here, and you were talking about, so it deregulates in a lot of ways. I think it deregulates some of the testing, if I understand correctly, although we have left in the American history and civil government. But it also talks about the deferred graduation. So, can you explain that to me, and how that helps some students to have a deferred graduation, but yet at the same time, based on our the way we were grading our report cards for our schools, it was damaging schools, it was hurting schools while we were helping children, and your bill fixes that. So, will you just dive into that and explain that to me?
Absolutely. Appreciate the opportunity to do that with you. But before I do that, if you don't mind me jumping in on that school choice conversation you were having just a second ago,
Yes.
I think that you can be a public school supporter and be school choice. That's certainly where I line up. And so, in my former role as a school leader, it was always my message to the school principals that we want to be the school that parents are choosing. We need to understand in
Right.
this role that parents have more choice than they've ever had before. And they can go to the public school next door to us through open enrollment. They can go to the parochial school down the street. They can do a wide variety. They can go online. They can be homeschooled. And so we know that parents have a choice. They should have a choice. They are in control of their child's education. And so we need to be the choice option that they select, because we are presenting what their child needs and what they need as a parent better than any other choice. And so that's
Hmm.
why we did a great job in my school district of attracting open enrollment students from other school districts that wanted to come to us, and also limiting the number of kids who chose parochial schools because they knew that we had a service like an attitude toward the kids and their parents. Uh,
Well, it
so
sounds to me like, one of the things I've heard quite often is that competition is good. That's the capitalist way, right? And it sounds to me like your motto, or your philosophy at least, was that kids come to your school because they want to and because their parents want them to, rather than because they have to or they're forced to.
That's right. And we have to understand in education that we don't have a monopoly, and we're not going to have a monopoly. Those days are over, and we need to treat people the way we would like to be treated. We need to treat parents like they're the customer. And that's what we're there to
Right.
do, is provide them with the education that their child needs.
And it's no wonder you were so successful in the public schools. Moving on to HB 455, and we're talking about some of the red tape that was cut in that, and we talked
Yeah.
specifically about deferred graduation. So, can you
Yeah.
let's do the deferred graduation first, and then we'll jump into maybe some of the other aspects of this bill
Sure.
as you feel led.
Yeah, so House Bill 455, it was a cleanup bill in many ways. There's things that we're asking schools to do that we felt like we no longer need to ask them to do some of these things. And, for instance, there's required notifications that you're supposed to give to your teachers, to your staff, to your employees. And state law required that all of those required notifications be put on paper and posted in the teachers lounge. And it's like, what? Why can't we just put them all on the internet now?
Yeah.
And so that those kinds of things. But really, the heartbeat and the biggest and best part of this bill, which schools have been crying out for this for 10 or 15 years, it's an offshoot, really, of the No Child Left Behind federal legislation, which then transitioned to Every Student Succeeds Act that's been pushed upon the states by the federal government. And so in this originally No Child Left Behind language, we have to track every single student on a variety of topics, whether it's English reading scores or math scores or social studies scores or their graduation. And whether people graduate, we have on our Ohio report card a 4-year graduation percentage and a 5-year. If you don't graduate in 4 years, maybe you can graduate in 5 years. We want to make sure that we're giving schools credit for that. And so there's another federal piece of legislation. Notice I keep telling you about what the feds require us to do. Um,
Yes.
and yet there's nothing in the Constitution about education. Anyway, so
I got that.
let's talk about students with disabilities. Okay, so the law allows that for students with disabilities, whether that's a specific learning disability or multi-handicapped or whatever the case might be, that they're allowed to defer their diploma and say, you know what, if I take a diploma, I'm going to have to leave the public school or leave any school, and I'm going to have to go get a job. I'm going to be, I'm going to be back with my parents. But if my parents say, you know what, I'm not capable of this student is so severely handicapped that I'm not capable of taking this kid at age 19, 20, 21, being productive with them. And in fact, I think they need a little bit more education. They're allowed to defer that diploma and say, I don't want that diploma yet. I want my child to keep going back to school. They're allowed to do that until age 22 by law. Okay. And so when a student defers that diploma, we were in our report card calculation showing that that child wasn't graduating in 4 years like all of the classmates. And so that makes it look like somebody dropped out, can't graduate, whatever the case might be. And so that's really unfair to the public school to make it look like they've got a dropout or somebody who's not graduating when they're actually doing the right thing and taking this kid while they're 19, 20, and 21 and taking them an additional 3 years and providing educational learning opportunities for sometimes very high need students. And it's very expensive to continue to provide high need students with the education that they need at age 19, 20, 21, but yet public schools are doing that and also taking a ding for that. So this is taking care of that issue so that we no longer are punishing public schools for doing the right thing. Actually, it's the law,
Right.
but so it certainly will help them in that area.
But that's what we call it. And I think what you and I are always trying to be aware of is unintended consequences. And that's why, every bill that we have, we run it through a committee process. We hear pros, cons, we hear from interested parties. And then when we're done, we send it to the other chamber, and likewise, they send it to us, and then it goes through the same rigorous process again before it goes to the governor for a signature. And by the time it gets to the governor, it's been well vetted through a committee process. And yeah, even still, once in a while, things like that come through that are unintended. We're trying to do good. We're trying to hold schools accountable, but we're also trying to do good and taking care of our special needs individuals. And somehow in the mesh there that somebody didn't connect the dots there, that we're actually punishing schools while for the fact that we're requiring them to do good to help these kids. And so thank you and Representative Manning for cleaning that up and making sure that schools can do the right thing without being penalized. Yes.
Well, there's one other thing, and you talked about the committee process, and I really thought that was great of you to point that out. The committee process is important. We find things in bills that we need to change or amend, and in the committee process on this bill, the as introduced version of this bill said that we were going to stop teaching American government at the high school level, and that was in the
Or at least
original
testing on it. We were going to
What's
stop
that?
testing on it.
I'm sorry, I misspoke. You're correct. Thank you. I
But
did not
that
say
would
that correct.
lead to some teachers not teaching it because they're not being tested.
Well, I don't know whether that's true or not. Certainly there was a fear of that. And so I
Right.
misspoke. In the as introduced version of the bill, it did have a provision in there that we were not going to keep giving the American government test at the high school level. The reason why that was in that bill at the beginning was because that the No Child Left Behind and the Every Student Succeeds Act that I talked about from the federal government doesn't require that we test and post a score on that particular subject area at the high school level.
Right.
And so when you hear parents and community go off on why are we testing our kids so much? Why are my kids always testing? My kid's anxious, my kid's scared, all of these kinds of
Right.
things. We test too much. Okay, well, maybe we could pull back one of the tests that's not required because all this other stuff that we're giving our kids that people are upset about, it's required. So why don't we pull back the one test that's not required? And so, that's why that was in the is introduced version of the bill. And through the committee process, we learned that, so a lot of people still want to give that test. So we pulled that portion out of the bill that eventually passed.
So you're being responsive to the community.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. And so, there's some concern was expressed that, if we don't test for American government at the high school level, then teachers will stop teaching it as hard, won't be as rigorous in their teaching and learning, and that
Hmm.
that'll just get wafted over and whatever, or that they'll start teaching, more. I don't know. I think I've been in schools long enough to know that teachers are going to work hard. Most teachers, I think, are very ethical. They're very well meaning. They want to do the
Hmm.
best. They know what they've been
I
hired to
agree.
teach, and they want to make sure that their students are going to be adequately prepared in their
Hmm.
subject area. I don't think social studies teachers would stop teaching it, but there was enough concern that we pulled it out of the bill.
And I think that, and I totally agree with you, but I think even the best of us, when our day gets crunched and we're pressured for time and we have to make those choices, the things that we're not held accountable for will be the first things to go. Because let's face it, teachers, they work hard. They have a lot to cram in. And we just want to make sure they understand that this is a priority. But again, I agree with you that the vast majority of our teachers throughout Ohio are great people doing wonderful things. And by the way, have I mentioned that the teacher of the year in Ohio is from my district, Chris Mansour from Tiffin? And we had a podcast on him. So we do it right up here in the 88th district, Adam.
Well, congratulations to Chris Mansour. I don't know him, but I do know others that got nominated. And for him to beat and be the best among all of those who are nominated, it speaks very highly of not just him, but the Tiffin School District, because,
Yeah.
school districts do a lot in professional development and they hire the right
Hmm.
people and so forth. So
They do.
kudos to both him and the school district.
Yes, and for those of you watching, I'll put a link to that episode in our show notes. We had a great conversation with him, and I think that will be beneficial to you. I even talked to Superintendent Kraft. He said, "Hey, I watched that episode. That was great. Thanks for doing that." And so, and he had just had they had just had lunch with Governor DeWine that day. So that's one of the duties of the Teacher of the Year is to go out and meet people and talk to people about education. And that day they had lunch with Governor DeWine. So something else is really adamant is getting a lot of attention, I think, in Ohio, and there are some varied opinions on this, and some people feel strongly this way, and some people feel strongly that way, and that, and I just want to just tease your brain a little bit, and that's NIL in high school. So, what are your thoughts?
Well, for those that are listening who don't know what that is, NIL stands for name, image, likeness. And we, of course, have permitted that at the college level all across America, that formerly amateur athletes that were playing college football, basketball, whatever, they're now allowed to be given payment for their name, image, and likeness. And, there are college athletes that are making millions and millions of dollars off of this. In fact, there are college athletes that are making more than NFL players,
Wow.
and that's just a fact. And now it's an arms race at the college level to see which school can have the highest NIL budget to pay its players. And all of this noise in the last couple of weeks about Lane Kiffin leaving Ole Miss and going to LSU. Well, one of the unreported parts of that is that that part of that deal is that LSU is now going to be the number one NIL payment football school in America in order to attract Lane Kiffin. But I digress. Okay, you ask about NIL because the
So if I can
conversation.
just pause there for a
Yeah.
moment, and yeah, I mean, I want to support all of our athletes and our colleges and stuff, but it seems like it just feels to me that now we're kind of getting beyond what's the purpose of a college or a university, isn't it? Education. And
Theoretically.
now we're diverting from the real purpose, and now it's about. And I have nothing against sports. I enjoy sports, and so let me put it this way: sometimes I enjoy sports because I root for the Buckeyes. My wife is from Michigan, and so every once in a while, it's this last game. I'm originally from Indiana, but I'm rooting for the Buckeyes, and so that was sort of a little conflict of interest this last weekend. I was rooting for the Bucks, but Anyway, let's move on. I don't want to talk about it.
Yeah.
But let's get back to NIL for high school.
Right. So
what are your thoughts on that?
yeah. So there was an athlete in the Dayton area that sued the Ohio High School Athletic Association because the Ohio High School Athletic Association doesn't allow for NIL payments to high school athletes in order to maintain your amateur status. You would lose that if you did that. Well, this athlete from Dayton sued one judge in Franklin County. Okay, a county level judge issued a temporary restraining order, and OHSCA said, well, give us a second here. We'll poll our member schools and see if we convince them to allow for NIL payments to our high school athletes. And so that's what, they went around the state asking its member schools to vote yes in order to avoid this temporary restraining order issued by one judge in one county. And so, I'm very opposed to high school going down this path. And so the reason I'm opposed is because I think that high school athletics should be an extension of the classroom. It's a holistic educational approach to what we're doing for our students in Ohio. And so high school athletics in 7 through 12, I should say 7 through 12, because that's what the bill is going to cover, should be about fitness. It should be about character development. It should be about leadership. It should be about discipline. It should be about communication skills. It should be about an extension of the classroom. In fact, many schools in Ohio call it co-curricular events. That's what they used to call it extracurricular. Now we call it co-curricular because, co with the classroom, what you're learning in the classroom, what you're learning on the field should be somewhat similar and involving those things that I just talked about. And so if we're going to spend public tax money on weight rooms, stadiums, and the like, then we should be using that. I think we do those kinds of things. We spend that kind of money on those things because we want to provide those holistic educational opportunities for our students, not so that they can earn money and I just think it's a total violation of the amateur status that we have. I think it brings too much pressure to our students. And when you look at the kinds of pressure that's already on athletes, there's a widely known study from a couple of years ago that shows that the second leading cause of death among NCAA college athletes is suicide. And we've got to be really careful that we don't take away our young people's youth and take away their ability to have fun and have learning opportunities outside the classroom.
That's a whole lot of pressure when now all at once these kids are now competing for dollars rather than just competing for sports. And and I think you make a really good point is that we are investing the community's dollars. We're investing tax. It's not like these kids are going out and buying their own, and maybe some of them do, but this whole program, the coaches, the trainers, the fields, everything is paid for by the public. And now we're going to allow someone else to come in, some other companies and some other corporations to actually profit off of these kids by using it's not just the kids, but those corporations are going to profit off of the name, image, and likeness of these students based on the investments that taxpayers have put into this. And really, I don't think these corporations should be profiting off of that. They should be investing in our kids. And that's, it's one thing again, I've got some reservations even on the college level, but still it's okay. When you're in college, you're an adult. When you're in high school, you're not.
Yeah. And why do we allow it at the college level? Well, I don't like it. It feels a little gross, but we allow it because we know that the coaches are becoming millionaires off of this. We know that the athletic directors, the school district, no, I'm sorry, the university itself, it's a very big business. The NBC, ABC, CBS, these ESPN, they're making a lot of money off of these kids. So that's why, okay, I'll hold my nose and say yes to this. But, I just think it's way too far to go to grade 7 through 12 for this now.
Yeah, totally agree. And so we've covered quite a few things here today, all education based. We've covered House Bill 455. We've covered school choice. We've covered NIL. And is there anything we've left out? Anything else that we should talk about before we wrap up this? We're about 25 minutes into our interview here this afternoon. This morning,
Well,
this evening, whatever time you're listening to it.
yeah.
But maybe we left something out. What else do you want to say?
Well, just real quick, there's a bill that I sponsored that's now on the governor's desk regarding kindergarten registration date,
Mhm.
enrollment date, and it's basically bringing some consistency to that because state law allowed you to enroll your kindergartner if they turned age 5 by either August 1 or September 30th. And that is just such a that 2 month span is just too big. It was confusing to parents. I heard from parents complaining about it. And so basically, this bill now says that if your child turns 5 by the first day of school in whatever school district you live in, then that's going to be the cutoff. Okay. Instead of waiting till September 30th or the high bar of August 1st. And it's going to bring some consistency across the state. I
Mhm.
don't think it's, I think the governor's going to sign it, and I think
Okay.
schools are appreciative.
All right. So that's very interesting. And so glad to hear that. I know my son, my oldest son was born right around that time. Actually, so was my second son. And it's interesting that my oldest son was born on August the 28th in 1990. And ironically, my wife, she said when we got married, she said she wanted to have our kids 3 years apart. And our second one was due actually on our third one's birthday. And I'm like,
Yeah.
wow, I didn't know you meant that seriously. I didn't know you were that literal about it. But actually, our second one was born 5 days late. So he was born in September. And, and both bright kids, both brilliant, proud of both of them. But our first one, he just was like ready. And we had him tested to see if he could enter early because he didn't meet the cutoff date at the time. And this was obviously a few years ago. And he went in and he talked to his kindergarten teacher. And she said, well, what do you want to be when you grow up? And he said, a paleontologist. And she's like, oh, okay. And so he's not a paleontologist, he's a pastor. But my second son, he's like, he was just having fun being a kid. And so we weren't sure that he'd be ready to sit around for kindergarten at that age. He was smart, but he just had that energy. And so we said, okay, no, we're not going to do that for him. So each child is different a little bit. So I guess my question is, can kids test and get in or get in early, or is this going to be a hard cutoff, or how are we going to handle that?
Yeah, there's already state law and school policy that covers the issue of early entrance. And if you test, you can be evaluated with a school psychologist and find that you score a certain level and you can still get in early. It doesn't change that early entrance
Okay.
ability. If you've got an especially bright child, it doesn't change that at all. It's just for the gen
The
ed kid.
standard.
Yep.
Okay. All right. Very good. And I know I threw that at you without any warning, but you had a great answer. And so wonderful. And I'm pretending to be a real journalist and asking those gotcha questions. Well, I appreciate you joining me today on What's Clicking, our podcast. And I appreciate your friendship. I appreciate your leadership in the Ohio House. And I think you're just getting started. I think you've got a long way to go, Representative Byrd, and you're going to accomplish some great things. And thank you for your service to the state of Ohio.
Great to be with you. It's an honor to be with you. And you and I started serving in the 134th. And then we
Yes.
served in the 135th, and now we're together in the 136th General Assembly. And, I'm very thankful that the voters hired me for this and hired you. And I hope they'll send us back and give us some more opportunities to do good things for Ohio.
Well, I feel awful good about that. And I look forward to many years to come. Maybe not necessarily. And obviously, we term limit out here in a couple of years, you and I will, but there are other opportunities. And so we'll see what the voters have for us. All right. Thanks, Adam. We'll talk to you later.
Awesome. Thank you.
Well, it has been incredible to hear about HB 455 and all that Representative Byrd and Manning are doing to help our education system. Representative, any final thoughts on this incredible bill?
Well, I'm just glad that we were able to get that through in the House. I hope the Senate takes it up and addresses it and advances that as well, so that we can provide some of that relief from the bureaucratic red tape that does not further the education of our students. And if we can get that done, I think that'll be a great thing for every student in Ohio.
Absolutely. Now, what do we have next week? Is there a preview that we'd like to give the listeners?
Well, I don't know if we'll give them a preview or not. I think we'll just tell them is next week is just going to be a summary, for the end of the year, and so it's we're going to wish everyone a happy new year, but we're going to look back on what has happened in 2025 and the state house, and especially very specifically for the 88th district. But it's just going to be a little bit of a year in review. Then after that, we'll be talking to Roy Klopfenstein, and we'll have a preview of that for you next week.
All right, sounds amazing. We look forward to hearing about the year in review.
You've been listening to What's Clickin', the official podcast of State Representative Gary Click, covering Ohio's 88th House District. That includes Seneca and Sandusky counties in Northwest Ohio. I'm Janae Myers, his legislative aide. If you'd like to reach out to us, you can send us an email at rep88, that's REP88, at ohiohouse.gov, or you can give us a call at 614-466-1374. Thanks again for joining us for What's Clickin' with State Representative Gary Click. We'll be back again soon to let you know what's clickin' in Ohio.